Hey friends, we're off here down at the square once again. Really nice day out after several cold days. Down here for another interview. Got a special guest with me today. But before we get started, I just want to give you all a view of the memorial today. Rosie out here putting it together. We got some help. So we're up here at the square today. So we're going to be talking about a related subject, and that's the gardens over here. We're going to be talking about Breonna's gardens here in just a moment. So with that, I wanted to introduce my guest today. My guest works on a lot of things here in town. He works on city transit issues, works on alleyway issues, gardening, everything. He's been involved here with the garden. So I'd like for you all to say hello to Jody Dahmer, aka one half of Beargrass Thunder. Thanks so much for being on today, Jody. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Rolf. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so before we get started kind of with what's going on down here, let's just give people a little background like I like to do with my guests. So just talk about what is Beargrass Thunder, what do you guys do, and how did it come about?
Yeah, sure. So Beargrass Thunder, we're an LLC that was started during 2020. The idea of Beargrass Thunder is how can we make a space better for cheap? And not only that, but how do we make a space better for the residents that live there instead of making a tourist attraction to bring in people? And what we're finding is that Louisville is a really old city. It was built, 1700s, and there are so many alleys and so many small streets that were built before cars were invented. And so we've been asked by several different neighborhood groups on how we can help use the existing streets and the existing stuff, like, for instance, gardens instead of lawns, to make not only a safer community, but also a community that is self-sufficient. So how can we grow food to feed the neighborhood without having to drive to the supermarket? And just stuff like that. It's called urbanism is the collective term for it, but we really like Louisville urbanism, and so we're really trying to make a name for Louisville and help out anybody that wants to reach out.
Nice. So let's just start with the gardening aspect of the work that you do, and let's get into some of the topics of community gardening, food forest, that kind of thing. And that the lack of which leads to food deserts.
Yes.
down in like the West End and other minority and poor communities. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there are a lot of different reasons why there are food deserts today, and part of the problem is that lawns are actually mandatory in the rule book for Jefferson County, Louisville Metro. So these are different ordinances that were made in the 30s through the 50s to kind of make a cookie cutter model for suburban houses. Because when white flight was going on, when rich white people were moving out of the city for the suburbs, they all wanted to live in a place that their property values were not in danger of falling. And when you talk about that, that means that every bit of grass you see in a suburb could be growing food. It's just illegal to. And so,
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So some of what we're doing here with Breonna's Roots is showing that we can grow so much food in such a small area. And this was all city-owned land that was basically just a grass patch before Tupac's birthday, June 16th.
I remember when you all put this in too, and of course people can't see it now. Most people seeing this have seen the garden at full extent, but now it's kind of looks like you all got your winter crops coming in.
Yes.
And harvested a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, so we did harvest. Most of you guys remember those 12-foot tall sunflowers in the summer. Everything has a season, and for the cold weather, we have to make sure that whatever we plant here is going to survive the winter. And a lot of crops, where it gets frosty or snow, it kills the plant. So what you see here, this is not plants that are dead, but these are plants that will be able to survive this cold weather a little bit better.
And so when all this grows out and you get all this wonderful food here, where's that going?
So that is all going to Feed the West. It's led by Change Today, Change Tomorrow. Everything that Breonna's Roots harvests, we bring directly to Change Today, Change Tomorrow's location on Washington Street in Butchertown. And we really have just been kind of blown away by how much food we can actually grow here. We started this more of as a concept, and this was all done by Victory Gardens and Wrath that really had the idea for it. And over time, we've just seen more and more of a community of gardeners come and take care of the space. And it's really amazing because it's not only an educational moment here in the square, but everything that we plant here can not only feed the people currently, but it can make seeds for more neighbors and more people to enjoy the same plant later in the future. And so we've saved I'd say about 500 seeds from different things, and we really hope to, the next spring, start giving out seed packets to different nonprofits, different residents, and anybody who wants it, who wants a piece of Breonna's roots and Breonna's history, feel free to message.
I love it when my guests basically are psychic and know what my next questions are, because I was about to ask you about seeds. So I'd seen that where you had collected them. So that's awesome work that you're doing there. So talk about the benefits of organic. I myself, I'm a big organic guy. I believe, in it. I did some research on diets and stuff, and to me, fat, sodium, and all this is important, but organic is the most important.
Yes.
Because in my opinion, our bodies were designed to deal with fat and cholesterol and these other things, maybe not always well, but they do deal with it, but they do not deal with pesticides and chemicals that you get those traces of those chemicals that stay in your body, and you get people sick and a lot of that. So what are your thoughts on organic gardening versus just conventional gardening?
So organic gardening, that means you're not spraying poison on either the plants or the property. And pesticide, let's call it what it is, it's insect poison. Herbicide, which is what a lot of people spray on their lawns currently, let's call that what that is, and that's plant poison. And when we have the mosquito spraying in the neighborhoods around the Ohio River, Beargrass Creek, what that is doing is the government is coming in with a whole bunch of pesticide, and no matter what property is on that street, you're going to have a ton of mosquito fog coming into your AC units, coming onto your garden, and it kills every insect that it touches. So this isn't just a mosquito spray, this is basically Armageddon for any kind of pollinators that you have in your garden. And it's really frustrating because right now it's completely illegal for having these mosquito spray ordinances that not only kill the bugs, but you're also limiting the amount of harvest you're eventually going to be able to get from having a garden because there are no bugs to pollinate.
Right.
So it's really kind of frustrating to me when I talk to the Metro Council and I talk to some of these state representatives about having organic gardening, because for them it's, well, that's not profitable. Well, if you look at it as a profit, that's one thing, but I'm looking at it as how can we feed the most people without killing anybody? And that's why organic gardening for me is just so beneficial, and more people need to learn about it. And most importantly, we need to put organic gardening language into the ordinances that we have in Jefferson County and Louisville Metro.
And I think it's especially important basically to save the bees, which is a big cause of mine, because they pollinate a third of our crops.
Yes.
So if we lose those bees, imagine the population with a third less food to feed us. That's going to cause,
currently have.
Right. And so the problems that will lead to, I don't ever want to see. And then bees are dealing with enough as it is. The last thing that they need, they've got the mites and everything else. Last thing they need is a chemical spray. So here in a moment, we'll kind of tour these gardens. But I wanted to ask you kind of about some other gardens that you have going around the city, where you've been doing some work in some alleys that basically, alleys that weren't used too much or used incorrectly, had a lot of potential, and you kind of saw that. So talk about your work you're doing with the alleys and the stuff that you're growing.
So some of the stuff that we're doing in the alleys is we wanted to prove to some of the naysayers that you can grow food in places that are in the right-of-way of areas, that are in these kind of out-of-the-way places that, like this, if you're able to put the seeds down and you're able to take care of that space, eventually you're going to be able to feed your neighbors. And so one of the projects that we have is in Shelby Park. It's called Roland Street Alley, and we were able to plant about 40 crops there with the permission of the property owner who owns most of the side of that alley there with his commercial space. And it has just been beyond our expectations. When we first started the project, we were told that it was a waste of time. And people would mow it, people would spray weed killer on the stuff, and ever since we started gardening that space and planting these cole crops, we had tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, all kinds of native wildflowers for the bugs. And what we found is that ever since they stopped spraying the weed killer, we've actually had more bees and butterflies than the residents there have ever seen.
Nice.
And it just takes one little change to impact your entire block. And honestly, if we can make good changes there, I think that we can really start feeding more people here with very little extra money or resources needing to go to it.
And I think it's a very out of the box thinking, and I like it, because we do have these food deserts downtown, and it's like, where can we put gardens? What can we do? You know, and you're taking space that's there. It's not being used for anything else. There's no changes that have to be made other than just the gardening itself. And there you're able to supply food for, you know, probably the block, I'd say, at least, you know.
You know, anybody, and especially for any houseless populations that are walking through transitory, it's really important to be able to have food. And so we've actually seen that the most use out of our garden in the alley are actually from the homeless that have gone by there and taken some tomatoes, taken some chili peppers, and it's all free, and it was all there. And if everybody started doing that, we can actually really make a change in the whole city.
Yeah, they're basically like mini food forests.
Yeah, really.
Or food alleys, I guess.
Food alleys, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess let's kind of take us on a tour here, what you got in the garden.
Sure. So
I'm going to keep the camera kind of close to you too, so people can hear you and you don't.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So right here we have a lot of the remaining cole crops. These are some kale and various things that we've been planting here. I think that's some greens. In the background there is some cauliflower. And what I really like about kale is that you harvest the leaves. You can see that these leaves have already been harvested from the bottom on up. And as long as you don't take the top leaves, this plant will still keep growing. So it's really been fun to, this has been one of the longest lasting. But these green leaves you see here, those are actually sweet potatoes.
Around the backside?
Yeah,
there?
around the backside. And more cauliflower through here.
I like the purple cauliflower.
Oh yeah. And you know, it's just been so great. More and more people are starting to recognize the plant based on the leaves. You know, but they're able to recognize it on site. And before this started, I don't think that many people were able to.
Yeah. Let's head over to the other side here. Swing around past the memorial.
So these have been some of our most successful. These are chilies, and you can see here that there's still a few remaining.
Nice.
And
good stuff.
yeah, the chilies have been great. Part of what we've been doing here, we've actually planted a whole bunch of garlic underneath the surface here, garlic and onions, and can't really see them, but they're there. We're talking dozens. And
nice.
hopefully it'll, next spring we'll see some stuff come up.
More sweet potatoes back there.
Oh yeah, more sweet. Oh, look at how many flowers are on that one, you know? And when people see these items in a store, they don't realize that those vegetables are living things. You know, if you take the seeds from a vegetable you like, you can just put it in the soil, put a little water on it, and if it's good enough soil, that you're gonna be able to have the same food that you like growing on your property.
Nice.
And yeah, it's something that I feel like needs to be taught more, because right now everybody thinks that the easiest way to get food is actually at the store, and that's not really the case.
Right. We're heading over here to the backside, looking at some more plants.
So you hear the birds?
Yeah, I see them in there too.
Yeah. So the birds did not used to be here. All these sparrows. And what we found is that once we started planting the crops that had these tiny seeds, more and more birds were able to survive in this park. Whereas before, you know, it was all weed killer, it was weed whack, and birds can't eat that don't exist or that are killed. So it's really important that we were able to, you know, like showcase not only feeding the people, but we can feed the entire ecosystem here. These
nice to be in harmony with nature as well.
These are purple flowers. These are lavender plants.
Nice.
And so you can see these lavender have just taken off. And sometimes I just come in here, take a sprig off, and it is the best thing to put in your mask. You know, I'm telling you, I always like to try out different smells, but lavender takes the cake. So here we got celery. More lavender through here, tons of cauliflower, like tons of cauliflower. But every purple flower you see is a new lavender. And look at that bee on the top there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's without the plants, the bees wouldn't come here either.
That's awesome. That's a lot of bees over there.
Yeah, seriously.
A lot of bees, a lot of birds.
And, you know, it just goes to show, like, there used to be a tree here when this park was built, right? And so you can see this giant circle, but once the tree died, the city didn't put anything back. So it's you know, it's just a matter of, like, part of what we do at Beargrass Thunder is we bring attention to the stuff that's already existing.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't take much to just take a shovel.
Yeah, because the city wants to hide behind the budget all the time.
Yep.
So when you give them an excuse to spend money, they don't want to do it. So
yeah. So if you make it cheap, they can't use that excuse anymore.
okay, we've come over here by Tyler Gerst Memorial, which is currently covered up right here, but we're looking at the plants right behind it and right next to it.
And so look at these green leaves, these diamond tip right here. You can tell that this is a sweet potato. Heart-shaped leaves, and when it's this color, I always assume when you see these pink flowers also, that's a really nice giveaway for it. Here, let's see if there's any more. Oh well. But we got petunias, all kinds of cosmos that are going in. Any of those that look kind of like the Lorax tree from Dr. Seuss.
Nice.
Those are cosmos.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Right? And these are some of my faves. This is milkweed.
Oh yeah, I love milkweed.
Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
I've seen that color of it before, at least
Yeah,
I'm not able to
me
grow
neither.
it.
And you know, it's just a gorgeous plant, and it attracts a lot of butterflies. And anything you see with these blue flowers here, right here, this is chicory.
Oh, okay.
And so chicory, you can actually dry out the root of this plant, grind it up, and it's actually a coffee substitute.
Yeah, nice. I didn't realize chicory had blue flowers.
And none of these flowers were here before the square.
I remember it. It's just basically mulch over here.
Yep, and the city actually has contracts with weed whackers, and they call it landscape maintenance. But basically, every week or 2 weeks, regardless of how hot it is, if it rained or not, the city will come in with weed whackers and mowers to get the grass short, because it's by law what has to happen. And if they had access to this space under the current laws, they would weed whack all this. And all we're doing is just throwing a few flower seeds, and look at what we were able to accomplish. You know, and I just want to say that the entire land development code for Louisville Metro is currently up for review until January. And so they're actually doing some sessions about what laws and ordinances need to change in order to have a more equitable city. Well, definitely weeds and grass have to be on that list, because if we can change that one paragraph to allow for farming in urban areas, then we got food.
So I want to ask you if you've seen the plans for the new park down here that's been proposed.
Yes.
And it's a lot of concrete.
It's a lot of concrete, no shade, and that's on purpose. You know, when they made that, that was right immediately after the Occupy Wall Street and all that was getting finished. And so they had a vested interest in trying to erase the amount of shade in the park, because no shade, there probably aren't going to be as many people.
Right.
And so they always have said that, oh, well, we can allow pop-up spaces and pop-up events. Well, we just saw what the city has done trying to limit the amount of pop-up spaces and pop-up events in this park already.
Right.
And they're going to demolish this tree, all of this garden area, and all of the memorials here in order to build literally a concrete plaza.
Big heat sink.
Yep. So what we're doing right now, we're not ready for that. We are going to have a permanent memorial site. We're going to have gardens in this space.
The memorials is not a part of they revamping.
No.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to fucking happen. And I mean, the thing about it is that that plan was made in 2018. It's 2020 and things have changed.
Right.
You know, they need to go back to that plan, because if they try to do this construction and they try to erase the memory of what we have done here, there's going to be thousands of people very upset.
Right.
So it's very important during all this Louisville Development Code meetings and things, bring that up to your representatives, to your council people, because we have the power to change these plans, and we really need to start like getting this going, because they're trying to fund the changes to the park for 2021.
Yeah.
So like the sooner and faster we can get this organized, the better. And I'm actually helping to get a script ready for some phone zaps in the future here.
Nice, because it hurts the community on two levels. I mean, from a physical standpoint, it brings that heat sink.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've been keeping up with the memorials, but if they ain't even talked to us and even tried to negotiate.
No.
But if they think that this is not it's not going to work if the gardens and the memorials is not a part of their revamping plan. Yes, we will compromise, but we're not giving. If all the memorials ain't a part in our vegetable gardens, then we've been feeding people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just can't take all of this away. We did this, we the people.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see none of that in their plans.
No.
So it's not gonna happen. And so we're willing to come to the table, but we're not gonna let it go down like that. So,
Absolutely.
and we're not gonna go nowhere. So when they want to talk, they can come and talk to the elders of the party. You know, I'll talk to anybody.
Thank you, Mama Rose.
Thank you.
Thanks for what you do, and thanks for your time. That was Mama Rose, everyone. She's probably the main caretaker here of the memorial and the park. So as I was saying, it would hurt us on two levels. One, you know, the infrastructure would create a heat sink.
Mm-hmm.
For two, you know, the emotional level that it's on, you know, of what's invested in this. This is the hub for the community now. You know, you see the memorials. We got multiple memorials in this park, not just Breonna, but
let's do David McAtee's.
Yeah.
That's the last one that we haven't covered. But we see here that it's not really a vegetable garden around here, but we did plant some things on either side. But I really think there is more that we could do in this space specifically. This is one of the newest memorials in the area, but I'm happy that we were able to at least get some ferns and some flowers for the fall.
Yeah, very nice. That's probably the last spot left here to do some stuff at.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I'm just so happy that we were able to fill 1, 2, 3, 4 different places.
Right.
And that's only been almost 5 months. You know, like, imagine what we can do in a year.
That's it. So let's head over here in the shade a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'm roasting.
And so, yeah, it's not, after the last few days, it's a little different here. But yeah, let's switch gears a little bit. All right.
Okay.
But yeah, gardening isn't the only thing that you work on, which is impressive. That's enough as it is. But you also work on city transit issues.
Yes.
And not just in Louisville, but you know, you have a new video with dealing with Bowling Green, so
yes.
Getting around the state now. So talk about, you know, your work with that, what got you interested in looking at that, and you know, what you want to do with it.
Sure. Well, I have grown up, born and raised in Kentucky, specifically Louisville and Bowling Green. I went to school at WKU, and what you know, I grew up in the suburbs originally, and what I always thought was weird going to school downtown was that the minute I got past Beargrass Creek, all of the roads turned into one-ways, and we didn't have one-way streets in the suburbs. So that's originally what kind of got my interest involved there. But what I found out later as I got into GIS work and map making, that's actually I'm a professional map maker.
Ah, okay, I didn't know that.
And so what I found is that when you compare the way that the one-way streets are laid out to the racial makeup of the neighborhoods in the city, the white neighborhoods in the suburbs don't have any one-way, but every single road crossing Beargrass Creek immediately converts. And that wasn't by accident. You know, that was deliberate, and a lot of the time it all has to do with branding, right? When you're building an interstate system and you got I-65 and everything, you say, oh, we need to make it efficient for commuters. And what do commuters mean? Well, it's the white people that live in the suburbs that are trying to get through the black neighborhoods downtown as fast as possible. And so it's just, what I really like about my work is that no one can argue with a map, because unless they can pull out a new road in their back pocket somewhere, it's impossible. Right. So yeah, right? So what's been really fun is I call Metro Council, I call Mayor Fisher's office, and they can't argue with me. But at the same time, they also don't want to spend money to fix it, because then they would have to admit that what they have been doing is pretty wrong. You know, Mayor Fisher's been in office for almost 12 years, and we still have one-way streets in Smoketown, Shelby Park, Germantown. Like, it's a mess. And the sooner we can actually get these two-way streets in urban neighborhoods downtown, the more connected our entire city is. Because what happens when you're too old to drive? What happens when your kids are still under 16? And what happens if you have a medical emergency and you can't drive a car anymore to get to work? Well, there goes your job. There goes your paycheck. Car insurance is over $200 more in the black neighborhoods than it is right across Beargrass Creek. And they say that we're trying to attract jobs into downtown. How can we put jobs downtown when everything is a parking space? You know, like, what I always like to say about Smoketown and Shelby Park is, like, these neighborhoods were built before cars were invented. So whenever you see a parking space in the city, that means that they had to demolish either a house or a business to build that parking spot.
Yeah.
And that's unsustainable,
right?
Because we're building our entire city for stuff that in 30 years, I'm probably not gonna be able to enjoy the stuff that the city has to offer. And so what I'm really wanting to do is honestly kind of selfish, because when I'm 65, 70, 80, I want to still be able to have the same quality of life. And, you know, I'm too poor to move to Florida when I'm, you know, a senior, so I'm stuck here. but I don't want to call it stuck. I want to be able to live. And I think everybody wants to be able to live, right? And why do we need a car in order to do that? That's really the end all be all, because right now, you know, those ordinances I was talking about, parking lots are mandatory for new construction anywhere in Jefferson County. So if I was to start a new business, I would have to pay at least $50,000 to $100,000 to put new asphalt down. And there's no way to recoup that cost because I can't charge for parking. Otherwise, I'd lose business. So it's like the city could have so many more entrepreneurs if they actually made it cheap to set up a business. But right now, we're getting all the money from the suburbs because that's literally who can afford it.
Right.
So if we change the rules, then we actually limit the amount of power that the big developers have. Like, you know, we've seen Gil Holland, Portland, all of this stuff. Why don't we make a neighborhood for the people that actually live there now? And so that's, I'll get off my soapbox, but I really, really am passionate about that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I noticed with your videos too. I mean, you do diagnose the problem very well, but you also bring a solution, and everything you do is very positive and upbeat. So it's not just, hey, we had this problem, let's be down about it. It's like, hey, we got this problem, but no worries. We've got solutions, we've got options. And so there's no reason to be down about it. Let's just get to work on it.
Yeah, and I mean that's all it is. Like once we find, you know, the people that are motivated enough to change the problem, you know, why don't we get Metro Council involved so we can actually get some money funded into these things? Because right now we've been able to do so much with just residents, right? But imagine what would happen if the government actually worked for us.
Right. So is there anything else with your work with Beargrass Thunder that you want to talk about that we haven't discussed yet?
You know, I think that going forward, Beargrass Thunder, for the winter months especially, we're going to be really focused into lobbying efforts with the Land Development Code. If you have anything that you feel like needs to change in your area, reach out to us at beargrassthunder@gmail.com or message us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We really want to hear from you, and if you guys have any ideas on what to grow next or what things you know, you might want to tell the Metro Council, we'll help you do it.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for what you do. Thanks to Mariah as well. Couldn't be here today.
And it is worth noting, though, that we do have 4 members of Beargrass Thunder. We're just the front-facing people.
Okay.
We have my fiance, Mariah, but we also have 2 amazing people, Nicole and Richard, who are the video editors extraordinaire. They're the ones that actually make me look competent when I'm on these YouTube videos. So I really can't thank them enough as well for you know, it takes an army.
Shout out to Nicole and Richard and Mariah. So yeah, everybody check out Beargrass Thunder on you know, your platform of choice, and follow that work. You know, he's doing good work, important work for the community. So with that, just want to give you guys an update for the weekend. I'm about to go live stream a protest here, so look for that. I'll have that up. Actually, that'll be up before this, and we'll be at another protest tomorrow, live streaming. So look for that, and we'll be looking for some this weekend. I'm also working on some interviews coming up. So, you know, I am local, independent, and nonprofit, so you can support this show and the activists that I have on just by liking, sharing, commenting, all that good stuff. Thank you all so much. Remember that I will see you all next time. Thanks.